Let's jump right into this explainer. Look, if you're stepping into the construction world, you probably already know that writing an environmental management plan, or EMP for short, is really only half the battle. The actual hard part? Keeping that plan alive so your site doesn't, get completely shut down by a surprise audit. So today, we are breaking down the exact step-by-step workflow for reviewing your EMP to make sure your projects stay compliant, safe, and are constantly improving.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The EMP review process. 2. Gathering staff feedback. 3. Categorizing and redrafting plans. 4. Evaluating new projects. And finally, 5. Communicating those EMP updates.
Just a quick heads up before we really get into the weeds. This explainer is actually customized specifically as a study guide for all of you Genesis International College students enrolled in the CPCCBC5011 unit. So definitely keep your notes handy. Whether you're prepping for an upcoming assessment or just getting ready to step onto a chaotic construction site, this stuff is literally the bedrock of effective environmental management.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the EMP review process.
Now, right off the bat, here's an absolutely crucial distinction you are going to need for your exams. There are 2 primary players in this review process, and they have very different jobs. On one hand, we've got the environmental monitors. Think of your site managers or environmental reps. Their job is strictly to gather the raw data and report on how the firm is actually performing out there. On the flip side, we have the senior management team. Now, they don't collect the data. Instead, their role is to take those findings, chew on them, and make the final authoritative decisions on what to do next. Basically, monitors report, management acts. It's a pretty perfect system of checks and balances when you think about it.
If it helps, try to think of the actual review procedure like a relay race baton pass. It takes 6 precise steps. First up, the monitors gather the information and prepare their briefings. Then, they review and update their presentation just to ensure absolute accuracy. Once that's locked in, they pass the baton over to senior management, who then consider those findings and finally officially act on them by handing down mandatory recommendations.
Moving right along to Section 2, gathering staff feedback.
So you might be wondering, how exactly do we best capture the real-world experiences of the operational staff, middle management, and subcontractors? These are the folks who see how the EMP plays out every single day, right? They're the ones pouring the concrete, operating the heavy machinery, dealing with the waste disposal. They literally have a front-row seat to what's actually working in the mud and what just looks good on paper in a nice air-conditioned office. Their insights? Absolute gold for your review process.
To grab that ground-level intel, you've basically got 3 distinct tools in your toolkit. Need a quick pulse check on the general site attitude? Boom, send out a survey using numerical scales. Easy. But what if you need to know exactly why a specific waste protocol keeps failing? Well, that's when you sit down for a semi-structured interview to get those deep, subjective insights. And hey, if you need to hash out some friction between, say, the framing guys and the electrical teams, throw them into a focus group to gather those diverse opinions and negotiate a solid consensus.
Here's the catch, though. Gathering all of this incredible feedback is completely useless if you don't rigorously document it. Seriously, you run a survey? Graph the trends. Do an interview? You better transcribe it. You need a rock-solid paper trail. Because, look, if an auditor comes knocking, you absolutely must be able to mathematically and logically justify any changes you end up making to your EMP. No way around it.
All right, on to Section 3, categorizing and redrafting plans.
Once you've got all this raw feedback sitting in front of you, your very first step in the revision process is categorizing it. Because let's be real, you can't fix everything all at once. You have to prioritize. All feedback is going to fall into one of 2 buckets. Bucket number 1, preventative or corrective action. This is the urgent stuff. Like if a worker spots toxic runoff leaking near a storm drain, you are tackling that today, right now. Bucket number 2 is continuous improvement. These are great suggestions, like maybe finding a slightly faster way to sort your recycling that make an already compliant process just a bit better, but they aren't urgent legal risks.
Now, as you start identifying all these priorities, you're going to need specific documents to actually track them. So let's build up that vocabulary. Your first term is the issue log. Think of this as your master list. It's a register that lists every single key issue identified during consultation and, crucially, whether or not it's been resolved. This is exactly how you prove to management that you don't just go around finding problems, you actually fix them.
Next up, we have change requests. This is essentially the official paperwork of action.
When a stakeholder wants a corrective action applied, they don't just yell it across a noisy site, right? They submit a formal change request detailing exactly what proposed changes they want and why. This just ensures that any modifications to the project follow a strictly formal, approved process, rather than just being done on a whim.
Okay, whatever you do, never ever forget your EMP version control. This section is basically the historical DNA of your document. It lists all the official versions of the EMP and summarizes exactly what changes in content and form took place per version. So every time you redraft the plan, the version number changes, like going from version 2.0 to 3.0. This is super important because it guarantees that everybody on site is working off the exact same, most current set of rules.
Rounding out this section, we have lessons learned documentation. This is how you make sure your organization actually remembers why a certain remediation was taken in the first place. It lays out the root cause analysis of the problems you encountered, the rationale behind your fixes, and the lessons learned through consultation. By writing this down, you're actively preventing your future self or your team from making the exact same painful mistakes on the next big build.
Which perfectly brings us to Section 4, Evaluating New Projects.
As your firm naturally takes on new work, you've got to evaluate how those shiny new projects actually impact your existing environmental planning obligations. Basically, you've got three choices for updating your activities and controls. First, you might need to add controls to suit the context of the new project. Say you're excavating near a river now. Bam! You need entirely new water runoff protocols. Second, you might need to modify existing controls. Maybe the new site is twice as big, so your waste management schedules just need to be scaled up. Or third, you might simply delete outdated controls in light of the firm's new portfolio, just to keep your EMP lean, mean, and relevant.
And that brings us to our final phase, Section 5, Communicating EMP Updates. So your EMP is updated and perfectly version controlled. Awesome. But a beautifully updated plan is completely useless if it's just gathering dust in a filing cabinet somewhere. Any updates that materially impact operations absolutely must be signed off by senior management first. Once you've got that signature, you have to communicate it to the staff via memos and meetings. Memos serve as your official written record, but meetings, that is where you actually explain the changes face-to-face, answer questions, and guarantee that the folks out there wielding the hammers actually understand the new rules of the game.
I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on for your exams and your future careers. If an EMP is updated perfectly in a binder in the site office, but the site staff operating the machinery in the dirt is never actually told about it, did the plan really change at all? Remember, an EMP isn't just a stack of paper, it's a living, breathing practice. Your ultimate responsibility is making sure every single worker on site breathes life into it. Good luck with your studies, Genesis International College students. Get out there and keep building smarter.